Let's talk about something we all do but rarely admit: bottling up our emotions. We think we're doing ourselves a favor by pushing those messy feelings aside, but here's the reality. It all comes back, and it hits harder than we think. Our minds can forget, sure, but our bodies, they remember everything. Those repressed emotions you've been avoiding, they're not just vanishing. They're finding new homes in your back, your gut, and even your heart. In this video, we'll unpack how ignoring what we feel makes us sick and why facing it might be the healthiest choice you'll ever make. 1. Our minds are full, but we're not listening. Let's face it, our minds are these vast, intricate spaces, crammed with endless thoughts and feelings. Yet most of the time, we're not even listening to what's actually going on in there. We often live in a way that's built around avoiding our deeper feelings. We're filled with unsorted, raw emotions, things like anger, sadness, guilt, envy, that we'd rather not confront. They end up hidden behind this thin mental wall, quietly running the show from behind the scenes. So we walk around carrying all this, yet we're hardly aware it's there. Why? Because it's uncomfortable. Facing real feelings is disruptive, so we ignore what we don't want to see. 2. Unconscious denial. Playing a role, not living honestly. We all have a story about who we are. For instance, we might think, I'm a kind person, so I can't be angry. Or, I don't care about petty social stuff, so I can't be sad if I wasn't invited. These aren't just ideas, they're mental scripts. We cling to these to preserve an image of ourselves that feels calm, in control, and untouchable by such petty emotions. But this self-deception is hollow. Real human emotions don't follow rules, and they don't care about our roles. Underneath, we feel everything: anger, disappointment, bitterness. Denying them doesn't erase them. It just sends them underground. 3. The stubborn conscience that refuses to stay silent. Here's where it gets interesting. Even if our minds prefer to ignore the truth, our conscience doesn't. This part of us, small but relentless, isn't fooled by our self-created illusions. It will go to war to be heard, creating all sorts of problems, stress, breakdowns, compulsions, as a way to push us toward awareness. It's like an itch we can't scratch until we listen. This conscience won't let us rest because deep down, it knows that unresolved issues and emotions don't just vanish. They wait, and they'll keep knocking until we open the door. 4. The body takes on what the mind won't acknowledge. When we refuse to look our emotions in the eye, they find another place to hide: our bodies. Think about it. Anger that we won't address can show up as back pain, anxiety as gut problems, and romantic heartache as literal heart issues. It's like our bodies take on the burden of our repressed emotions, absorbing all this unresolved tension. Physical symptoms are often the body's last resort strategy to make us pay attention to what we're ignoring emotionally. When our mind won't process our emotions, our body reluctantly steps in. 5. Medicine treats symptoms, not the whole person. Most doctors are well-meaning, but they often treat symptoms in isolation. If you go in with chronic pain, they'll do their best to fix what seems like a material problem. But here's what they don't always see. Sometimes it's not a faulty kidney or a bad back. It's unresolved grief, anger, or resentment manifesting in the body. The issue is that physical and emotional health aren't separate. They're intertwined. Ignoring this leaves us with temporary relief at best and unresolved pain at worst. 6. Listening to the body's silent messages. So how do we start working with this? The first step is to ask, if my body could speak, what would it say? Maybe it's at the end of a long day, lying in bed, when we're finally quiet enough to listen. With eyes closed, think about each part of your body. Ask yourself, what might my heart want to say? My stomach? Shoulders? Often the answers come swiftly and feel shockingly clear. Our shoulders might beg us to let go of a toxic relationship. Our stomachs could ask for fewer responsibilities, or our hearts may need to express a long-held regret. 7. Physical pain as repressed emotions, silent protest. Many physical ailments are silent rebellions against the emotional neglect we've been practicing. It's as if our bodies are calling us out on our refusal to acknowledge what's been festering inside us. Ignored emotions can transform into things like back pain, migraines, insomnia, digestive issues, and even chronic fatigue. By refusing to feel, we're sending our bodies into overdrive, making them carry the heavy load of our psychological burdens. It's the body's way of making us aware that there's unfinished business demanding our attention. 8. True relief comes from reconnecting with our emotions. The best healing doesn't come from just treating symptoms, but from reintegrating our forgotten emotions. Once we take a moment to bring these feelings to the surface, they're no longer hidden in the shadows, festering and influencing us indirectly. We start feeling lighter, healthier, and more at ease. It's about reversing the avoidance, facing what we've been too scared or too busy to look at, and letting go of the baggage. Real freedom isn't in escape, but in facing ourselves honestly, however difficult or uncomfortable that may be. When we stop running from our emotions and start listening to them, our minds and bodies can finally work together, lifting the weight we've been carrying for far too long. And that right there is where true health begins.